This is Chapter 2, Selected Exercises. From Section 2.1, write a conjecture that describes the pattern in the sequence. Then use your conjecture to find the next item in the sequence. So we have 6, 11 over 2, 5, 9 over 2, 4. So we can write 6 as 12 over 2. We can write 5 as 10 over 2. And we can write 4 as 8 over 2. I think this way it's much clearer what's going on. So each item is 1/2 less than the previous item. So subtract a half, we have 11 halves, subtract a half, 10 halves, 9 halves, 8 halves. So the next item would be 7 halves. It also says write a conjecture that describes the pattern in the sequence. So each item is 1/2 less than the previous item. For number 6, make a conjecture about each value or geometric relationship. So on number 6, point P is the midpoint of segment NQ. So the first thing that we want to do is make a diagram. Where P is the midpoint of segment NQ, like so. Okay, so looking at our diagram here, what do we know? What is the relationship, the geometric relationship? Well, we know that this length will be the same as this length. So these two segments have to be congruent if P is the midpoint of NQ. So that's what we would write. Segment NP is congruent to segment PQ. On number 8, angle 3 is congruent to angle 4. So here's angle 3. Here's angle 4. To show that they're congruent, I can make a mark like this. And make the same mark on this one. So those two angles are congruent. So what is the geometric relationship? Well, the measure of this angle has to be equal to the measure of this angle if they are congruent. So the measure of angle 3 must equal the measure of angle 4. On number 9, determine whether each conjecture is true or false. Give a counterexample for any false conjecture. So the conjecture is if angle ABC and CBD form a linear pair, then angle ABC is congruent to angle CBD. So first of all, we need to make a diagram of a linear pair. Where one angle is ABC and the other angle is CBD. So a linear pair is a pair of angles, a pair of adjacent angles, so they share a side, common vertex, and their non-shared sides forms a straight line or opposite rays. So if two angles form a linear pair, this says that the two angles have to be congruent. Well, I've obviously shown in my diagram that those angles do not need to be congruent. If they were congruent, then both angles would be 90 degrees, but it's not necessary to form a linear pair where the angles are congruent. So this is false. And a counterexample could be the measure measure of angle ABC equals 110 degrees, and the measure of angle CBD equals 70 degrees. And the diagram showing that. From section 2.3, number 1, identify the hypothesis and conclusion of each conditional statement. So the hypothesis is the part of the statement that follows the word if. So we have, if you purchase a computer and do not like it. So you purchase a computer and do not like it follows the word if. So that is our hypothesis. And our conclusion is the part of the sentence that follows the word then. So it goes on to say, then you can return it within 30 days. So you can return it within 30 days is our conclusion. Number 4, write each statement in if-then form. A polygon with 4 sides is a quadrilateral. So we need to put the words if and then in there in the appropriate spot. Since we have the word is in here, being a quadrilateral depends upon having 4 sides. So a polygon with 4 sides is a quadrilateral. So the conclusion will be is a quadrilateral. So the hypothesis would be if a polygon has 4 sides, then it is a quadrilateral. So if a polygon has 4 sides, then it is a quadrilateral, would be the statement in if-then form. For number 8, determine the truth value of each conditional statement. If true, explain your reasoning. If false, give a counterexample. So if 2 angles are supplementary, then one of the angles is acute, which means less than 90. So supplementary means that the angles add up to 180, and acute means less than 90. So there are many cases where this would be true. For example, you could have one angle is 20 degrees, and 20 degrees is less than 90, so 20 degrees is acute, and that would force the other angle to be 160, because 20 plus 160 is 180. But what if both of the angles were 90 degrees? 90 plus 90 is still 180, and 90 degrees for both angles means that neither of them are acute. So this is a false statement. And our counterexample would be if both of the angles are 90 degrees. Number 9, write the converse, inverse, and contrapositive of the conditional statement. Determine whether each statement is true or false. If a statement is false, find a counterexample. So, our statement is, if 89 is divisible by 2, then 89 is an even number. So, first of all, our converse to this, converse is where you switch the hypothesis with the conclusion. So now, our converse would be if 89 is an even number, then 89 is divisible by 2, then we want to determine the truth value of this statement if 89 is an even number. So we stop right there. If 89 is an even number, okay, 89 is an odd number. So anytime when the hypothesis of a statement is false, it is a true conditional statement. So if 89 is an even number, okay, since that is false, then this is a true conditional statement. Then we want the inverse of this statement. So the inverse is where we negate the hypothesis and negate the conclusion. So here's our inverse. If 89 is not divisible by 2, then 89 is not an even number. So is this a true statement? If 89 is not divisible by 2, okay, that is true. 89 is not divisible by 2. Then 89 is not an even number. Right, 89 is not an even number. So the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is true. So this is a true conditional statement. And then we need one more. We need the contrapositive. So the contrapositive is when you do both. So you switch it around and you negate. So if 89 is not an even number, then 89 is not divisible by 2. So if 89 is not an even number, okay, that part is true, then 89 is not divisible by 2, and that part is true. So this is also a true statement. The contrapositive is true. For numbers 17 through 20, use the diagram to state the postulates that verify the truth of the statement. So number 7.